Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, the calendar turned to January, and I thought certainly we are done with shopping trips and wish lists and all that kind of stuff. And it turns out, no, Christmas may be over, but the college football shopping season has just begun. And so we're going to do a whole series of shows on Ohio State's shopping list, wish list, whatever you want to call it. Remember, like going back and like circling things in the Sears catalog,
Mm.
like, oh, look, they have a full football uniform that looks just like the New York Giants. That'd be amazing. And never got it, Tony. But maybe things will work out better for Ohio State in January than it did for me in December 1987 or so.
Yes, Merry Portalmas to you as well. Now I just want the G.I. Joe aircraft carrier, and I can't think of anything else. But thank you for distracting me, Tom, and also depressing me. Let's talk about Chaz Coleman, Penn State defensive end. Freshman year this year had flashed and shown out and impressed a lot of Ohio State fans. An Ohio native, so when he hit the portal, there's a lot of excitement around. He is now taking the campus tours of places. He's been to LSU, been to Tennessee, now scheduled to visit Ohio State. And of course, when you're looking for Ohio State, you're talking about you're losing Caden Curry. So it'd be nice to sign another defensive end to replace him or to replace, just to add to the depth. You're not, good luck replacing Caden Curry, I should say. You need some bodies. And this is a guy that, as I said, had some moments this year. And everybody wants him, Tom, which means there's going to be a hefty price tag on him. But being from Ohio, maybe Ohio State can get a lower tag. But even as I'm saying that, Ohio State fans, I can hear them saying, who cares what the cost is? Go get Chaz Coleman. And that's fine, but you're also still working with Kenyatta Jackson. And so there's you don't even know necessarily. I don't even know if they know how much they can spend on somebody right now because they don't know how much money in the defensive line room is still available to be used.
Right. It feels like there's a lot of moving parts here. And until you know who's coming back and who's not, you don't really know, number one, what kind of resources you're working with in terms of money. But number two, how many holes do you have to fill? Because if Kenyatta Jackson is back next year, the defensive line room looks one way. And if Kenyatta Jackson's not back, well, then it looks a little bit different. And, you go from, I think there are three kinds of players right now. You need someone in this position. You need a defensive end to fill a spot. You need this guy. This guy is your have to have guy. And yeah, would be nice, but don't need, and a little extra depth might be something like this to me feels like it's probably in the middle, maybe, where you
Mhm.
probably you want to add someone else. You don't, this is not like well, if someone just kind of like wanders in off the street, you would be great. Like it's more than that. They need someone at that defensive end position. I think Chaz Coleman would be a great addition. I don't know that Chaz Coleman is the only person that can solve this issue for Ohio State because, you see people. I think his name got connected to Ohio State early enough that everyone just kind of wrote him in, and then it's like, well, if they don't get him, everything is lost. I think Chaz Coleman would be a great addition to Ohio State, but there are other names out there that I think, especially if they can keep Kenyatta Jackson, probably could fill that position in at least sort of a similar way to Chaz Coleman, because Chaz Coleman is good. Chaz Coleman has ties to Ohio. Chaz Coleman would be a great addition to this team. But Chaz Coleman, you're still looking at a lot of projection with him. It's not like he put up enormous numbers as a true freshman. He played as a true freshman, which is, that's good. That's impressive. That shows that you're kind of on a trajectory to bigger things. But you're not, this doesn't fall into the bucket of, well, you're paying for the veteran proven producer, because that feels like that's where teams have really found a lot of success in the portal.
Yeah, and it seems like the price tag that he has is one of a proven commodity, and even some of the services are ranking him as like one of the top two or three defensive ends in the portal. And true freshman this year. As I said, he had some moments, especially against Ohio State. Everybody remembers him lining up over Carson Hinsman, spinning right around him and creating an incompletion and hurrying Julian Sayin. On the season, in 9 games played, 8 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 1 sack. Compare that to Ohio State true freshman defensive end Zion Grady, 13 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 1 sack. Now, what some people tell you is that Chaz Coleman's pressure rate and win rate was much higher, and so take that for what it is. But it's 8 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, and a sack, and everybody's talking about him like he can't miss. And if you do miss him, what are you even doing? Like, why are you even bothering trying to play football and field a football team? He's listed at 6'4", 246, and he's the frame that he has, he can add more weight, and the athleticism is tremendous. And he was kind of an under-the-radar guy for, I think, in recruiting in that maybe there's just something about him. Maybe he was too skinny for Ohio State, even though I think we all remember Javante Jean-Baptiste, going and getting him from New Jersey and bringing him in as like a 205-pound outside linebacker defensive end and putting the weight on him. So I don't know that necessarily connects. But you see what he was able to do at times against at Penn State. One of those was a forced fumble sack where he basically just picked football up off the ground, forces it, picks it up, and takes it and runs it for a nice return. Smooth athlete. And one of those guys that you're watching, and he's from Ohio, and it starts to like smart with a lot of fans. Like, why did he get away? How did this happen? How could you let this happen? This is an opportunity for Ohio State to right a wrong, and if you don't do it, then you've just committed another wrong.
Yeah, and I think this is also, you can't get too emotional about these things, because if you get emotional, that's when you dedicate a bunch of money to like this guy. Listen, I'm coming at this from the perspective of a lifelong Mets fan. Let me tell you all the ways you can screw up in free agency. You can fight, and not that college football is free, not that the transfer portal is free agency, Tony. I'm not saying that. Anyway, so since college football, the transfer portal and NIL is now free agency. Let me tell you all the ways you can screw up in free agency with the benefit of a lifetime as a Mets fan. Finding one person and saying, it's this guy, and if we don't get this guy, we're all doomed. We might as well fold the franchise. That's a great way to give Jason Bay an enormous contract. How did it work out? Shh. We don't have time to talk about it. Are they still paying Bobby Bonilla? Shh. It doesn't. Tony, I'm not here to talk about that. You have to, I think you have to look at it, and unless you're talking about a truly generational talent, Jeremiah Smith, Caleb Downs, like there are lots of, Ohio State has been fortunate to have a number of truly generational talents at their position the last couple of years. There are not that many of those guys out there. If you're talking about one of these truly generational talents, absolutely, like go ahead, drop that bag, whatever you need to do to get them in. You don't, I don't know that there is a generational talent as a defensive end this year. I think there's a lot of very good players. I think Chaz Coleman's a very good player. I think Chaz Coleman would be a great addition to Ohio State. If Chaz Coleman goes somewhere else, this is going to be a year where Ohio State will still field the football team and will still probably win 10 games and make the college football playoff. Like, it'll be fine. If they can get him, great. But again, you have to factor in all this other stuff with Kenyatta Jackson. Or can you keep him? If you can keep Kenyatta Jackson, that is job one, because Kenyatta Jackson has done this at the high level. He has been an impact player at the college, the high college level. What you're getting with Kenyatta Jackson, and that is the most valuable thing. Chaz Coleman I think he is like maximized last season to get people all whipped up about it, where he was an Ohio kid, didn't end up going to Ohio State. And then immediately week 2 has that huge game against Florida International, 4 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, had the forced fumble, the fumble recovery, the long return you talked about. That was half of his tackles all season. That was 2/3 of his tackles for loss all season. So, you have this week 2, imagine what he's going to be doing the rest of the season. And he was good the rest of the season. He was playing the rest of the season. And again, I don't want to undersell this. This is someone who was playing on Penn State as a true freshman. That's very impressive. But I don't think this is like, oh, he's light years better than Zion Grady. I don't really see that. So, you would love to have him lining up across from Zion Grady. That would be fantastic. That would be a great outcome here. But, this is not Caleb Downs. This is not Jeremiah Smith. Almost no one that we're going to be talking about in this whole series of shows is Caleb Downs and Jeremiah Smith.
No, and yet if Kenyatta Jackson does leave for the NFL or just leave in general, now that becomes Chaz Coleman becomes somebody, or the defensive end position becomes something that you really need to go and get, because without Kenyatta Jackson, you're looking at, you mentioned Zion Grady, Bo Atkinson, we assume would be back, Epi Satanale, Josh Mickens, Kari Wilder, and Dre Quinn, the two true freshmen. I'm looking at that list and I'm wondering, well, I wonder how much they can get out of Kari Wilder, because they're probably going to need him. And Epi Satanale has put on a bunch of weight and looks like he's ready to go as a redshirt freshman next year. And Zion Grady should be pretty good as a sophomore, but it's a lot of should-bes and, looks this ways. And yet that's also the case if they add Chaz Coleman as well. But I guess if you don't have Kenyatta Jackson, it would be better to have, well, in any instance, it would be better to have Chaz Coleman than not. Let's say that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. You would much rather have Chaz Coleman than not have Chaz Coleman, but you would much rather have Kenyatta Jackson ahead of anyone else that we're talking about in this conversation for the 2026 Buckeyes. So, that feels like that's the single biggest piece that we're waiting on an answer on right now. Is he going to come back? Is he not going to come back? And if he comes back, that's the biggest win Ohio State could have at the defensive end position, and Chaz Coleman is probably the second biggest win they could have at the defensive end position.
Yep, I would agree with that. So there you go. Some thoughts on Chaz Coleman and what he could do, mean for the Buckeyes, and what the Buckeyes, frankly, could do for him as well. If you want to hit the thumbs up, if you're watching, we'd appreciate that. Subscribe to the channel if you've not yet done so. 5-star rating and review on all the podcast platforms, always appreciated. And you can continue to find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you all later.